After months of rumours, doubts, speculations, and all other kinds of justified responses, Mass Effect Legendary Edition has finally been announced.
Okay, BioWare, for once in a very long time, you have my attention.
It's tough keeping a big secret, and we really struggle to keep this one a surprise, but now it's official. Today we're announcing the Mass Effect Legendary Edition. For many months now, our team at BioWare has been hard at work updating the textures, shaders, models, effects, and technical features of three enormous games. Our goal was not to remake or reimagine the original games, but to modernize the experience so that fans and new players can experience the original work in the best possible form.
So they won't fix 3's ending, will they? Well, at least I'll get to eat Tally's ass in 4K.
Ventura Highway in the sunshine, where the days are longer, the nights are stronger than moonshine. You're gonna go, I know.
It's time to get some closure. Now, this video has been a long time coming, one that has actually been several years in the making, ever since the Mass Effect series died, alone and scared, in a lonely grave. But I've been tempted to go through and see exactly what caused this franchise to go down in flames. The simple answer would be EA, the multi-tentacled behemoth that devours studios, leaving nothing but bones behind. But the truth is a bit more tragic than that. But before we get started, let's add some context for people that don't know this story. BioWare is the famous studio responsible for all sorts of classic games. Knights of the Old Republic, Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, Neverwinter Nights, Dragon Age Origins, and of course Mass Effect. They had a reputation for creating fun stories filled with memorable characters, and more than one of their titles are on lists for greatest games of all time. But the one that really threw BioWare up onto the stage was the Mass Effect series. There really isn't a way to understate just how popular these games were when they were coming out. The first game was sort of a sleeper hit, being a 360 exclusive that was, in all honesty, pretty clunky. But by the time Mass Effect 3 came out, this franchise was something a lot of people were legitimately excited for. It was a compelling trilogy, all things considered. The lore was in-depth and really interesting. Each character was fleshed out and you could form emotional attachments to them. It was a clear love letter to science fiction classics like Blade Runner, Star Trek, and even H.P. Lovecraft. And even though Mass Effect 3 had some problems, it's still remembered fondly, for the most part. Now, I'm going to be spoiling pretty much every Mass Effect game in detail at this point, so if you want to go into this series as blind as possible, now would be your chance to drop out. I'll recommend you to play the original trilogy and avoid Andromeda at all costs, because it's not great. Okay, full disclosure, the downfall of Mass Effect started way before Andromeda. It was simply the aftermath of long-standing cracks that had been in the series since the beginning. Cracks that kinda grew worse with every entry. But you can't talk about Andromeda or the fall of Mass Effect without starting at the beginning. Mass Effect 1 is the very beginning of the series. It came out in 2007 just as the 360 and PS3 were coming out, but it was a Microsoft exclusive for a while, only coming to PC in 2008 and PS3 in 2012. It follows the adventures of Commander Shepard, a soldier for the Alliance military, sort of a globalized, united front made up of the various nations of Earth. The year is approximately 2183, and humanity is an established presence in the Milky Way. It's been 30 years since first contact with an alien species, and it didn't go great. To put it in perspective, the event is called the First Contact War. So humanity saw spooky alien birds and sex parasites, and our first reaction was to make them go away. Immediately the lore gets points for accuracy. Well, technically the alien birds shot first, but that fact gets you censored off Twitter. Point is, aliens and humans have sort of a rocky relationship. There isn't any outright conflict, but there's open distrust between species, especially the council races, as in aliens who've been granted the privilege of electing a member to the council, which serves as the main seat of government for the galaxy on the Citadel, a huge space station that's existed for thousands of years. Nobody knows where it came from, it's got creepy alien bugs maintaining it, and it's probably a conduit to allow elder gods to come in and wreak havoc on civilization. But the lake is pretty. The The council races go as follows. Turians, a militaristic species of lizard bird people. Humans and Turians have the most beef as they were the ones that went to war during First Contact. They were the latest species to join the council when the series begins, having earned their spot by defeating the Krogan during their uprising, so they also have beef with those guys as well. Solarians, these guys are frog people. Super smart frog people. Solarians are the most scientifically focused of the races, which is due to their hyperactive natures. They learn fast and resemble the kind of thing you would see in a 50s B movie, the little gray alien that comes to Earth to study humans. They're always trying to research something, and they tend to be the guys you turn to if you need some fancy new piece of technology, but thanks to their super fast metabolisms, they don't live for very long, only up to their 40s, which is only made worse by the fact that they're pretty squishy in a gunfight. They're more espionage focused, and prefer using dirty tricks and outsmarting an opponent than just using a stand-up fight. The final council race is the Asari, and they're horny space parasites. No, I'm not kidding. Asari are arguably one of the most advanced species out there. They live a long time, up to over 1,000 years, and they can breed with whatever they want. In fact, Asari prefer to mate outside of their race, seeing an introduction of alien DNA as beneficial to the long-term survival of their species. The way it works is that Asari are a monogendered species. Every Asari is born female and is capable of getting pregnant, so even other Asari can mate and have children, but it's not traditional mating in the sense of rabid, balls-deep fucking. The technical term is melding, where I guess they join minds or something, and from that, a child is conceived. I don't know how it works, and frankly, I'm scared to look into it, especially when you realize that the design of the Asari might not be a concrete representation of what they actually are. Asari are considered attractive by every race, even ones whose females are drastically different from traditional humanoids, and this is remarked upon in the series.
I can understand why I might find Asari attractive, but how can they be attractive to humans too? They look just like Solarians.
What? They look exactly like us. I'm not seeing the Solarian thing at all. At all.
You're both wrong. Asari look just like blue Turians. Look at the head fringe.
Wait, you don't think they're like mind controlling us to see them as attractive, do you?
Hey, Chaim. What? I think the Goyim know. That's ridiculous. The Goyim don't know. I think they know, man. They don't know. They know.
So it might be subtle psychological manipulation. I'm not saying that Asari are actually just a mass of tentacles using scary psychic powers to trick you into seeing a beautiful woman. I'm just saying there's no proof that they're not. So that's terrifying? Yeah, I'm gonna have to think twice the next time I make Shepard stick his dick in Liara. That's not even getting started on half the lore of this series, because there's also the non-council races, the Protheans, the Terminus systems, all the beef between Krogans and everybody. And of course, you can't forget about the Mass Effect relays, the main way space travel is accomplished in this version of the future. Now, it's not like hyperspace in Star Wars or warp drives in Star Trek. Mass Effect relays are stationed fixtures in space, and when a ship flies by one, the relay actually affects the mass of the vessel itself, which lowers to the point of allowing faster than light travel. And that's not the only thing that uses Mass Effect. Artificial gravity is a byproduct of the technology, and even most weaponry uses a form of a Mass Effect generator, which accelerates metallic slugs to increase impact and damage. Send tiny bits of metal at your friends like a swarm of pissed off bees. Every spacefaring race in Mass Effect uses this technology, and they all seem to have similar stories as to why. Each and every race stumbled on a beacon or data cache belonging to the long extinct Protheans, an apex empire that conquered the galaxy 50,000 years ago and then mysteriously collapsed. It's almost like something wiped them out and tried to hide as much evidence of their existence as possible. Wonder what that could be, though.
Rudimentary creatures of blood and flesh. You touch my mind, fumbling in ignorance, incapable of understanding.
Mass Effect has a really cool world. It has a lot of detail to it, and there's a focus on making it all feel believable. There's a reason this series got as big as it did, because you could easily lose yourself just exploring the nooks and crannies and wanting to see as much of this setting as you can. Granted, this is all just science fantasy. The future is not going to be as cool as what Mass Effect looks like. You won't see blue alien women that have brain sex to make babies. At least, God, I hope not. But Mass Effect never pretended to be an accurate prediction of the future. This isn't Deus Ex, it's just trying to be fun. The first game works as a great introduction for how a vast majority of this universe functions. It's a good rundown for the important details and conflicts that get fleshed out in the other two games. Now, it really doesn't take long before you realize that the galaxy is run by idiots that keep creating problems that only escalate and get worse because certain people are brain dead, and the one that has to shoulder everything is Commander Shepard, protagonist of the trilogy, ultimate badass, and glorified space janitor. Mass Effect 1 starts off simple. You are Commander Shepard, an Alliance soldier you can customize with a variety of different classes and backgrounds, everything from a beloved hero who grew up in a military household to a war criminal traumatized by the death of your friends and family. It's sort of a skeleton to what would later be used for the origin system in Dragon Age, and honestly becomes less and less relevant as games go on. In fact, the first game is the only one that really used it to its full advantage, having different pieces of dialogue and even quests depending on who you went with. If you want to get technical, Mass Effect 1 is the only real RPG of the series, allowing for different builds and playstyles that can drastically affect how you get through missions, and not just from a gameplay perspective. A lot of side quests have multiple outcomes, and not to sound like an IGN article, but your choices do matter in this game. Not all of them, there are very clear good and bad decisions, but there's at least room to experiment. The reason I mention this is because the actual gameplay of Mass Effect 1 is kinda bad. It's very stiff, and the AI can't do much beyond run around and shoot, not even mentioning that if you play this on console, then your frame rate will be more unstable than a spinning dinner plate during an earthquake. This was the first attempt BioWare made to move away from the D&D style combat that made up pretty much the entirety of their lineup beforehand, and they wanted to make it more of a third-person action game, like the stuff that was extremely popular at the time. Also, there's the Mako. I don't want to talk about the Mako. And while it's not great in Mass Effect 1, the later games really ironed out a lot of the issues with the combat. Though in the first game's case, you can see the focus isn't on the shooting, it's the characters, quests, and writing, which yeah, they're pretty good. That first game still holds the classic BioWare formula, and feels very reminiscent of something like Knights of the Old Republic, which makes sense because the writer of the game is Drew Karpyshyn. Or Karpyshyn, however the fuck you say his name. And he worked on all sorts of BioWare games, everything from Baldur's Gate 2 to Jade Empire. He was part of that old guard of BioWare that existed during the studio's golden age, then eventually left to work on his own independent novels, and now just recently joined fellow BioWare veterans James Olin and Chad Robertson at Archetype Entertainment, a studio specifically made up of former Wizard of the Coast and BioWare employees. Oh look, and they're making a new science fiction role-playing game. Now, I want to explain the opening hours to each Mass Effect game. That way you can see how each game differed from the other, from subtle changes to outright different mechanics. I'll explain everything up until you're really let loose and allowed to travel from planet to planet, because I don't want to do a play-by-play of every Mass Effect game. We'd be here for a long fucking time if that was the case. No, instead, I'm just going to talk about the prologues to each game. So the basic synopsis of Mass Effect 1 goes as follows. You are the aforementioned Commander Shepard, a renowned Alliance soldier working on the experimental starship known as the Normandy, which is currently captained by Keith David, or Captain Anderson. On paper, you're trying out the new cutting-edge stealth systems for the ship, but basically everyone knows that's not what's really going on here, especially since there's a full-blown Spectre on board the ship, a Turian named Nihilus, and that's a pretty big deal. Spectres are basically council-sanctioned super cops. They can do whatever the hell they want, and even get high-grade military weapons to go along with it, so a Spectre joining a rinky-dink operation with the Alliance doesn't make a lot of sense. Once you get to know the crew and yell at Seth Green, Shepard is ordered to report to the captain, and you discover the truth. Obviously, the mission was a lot more than just testing out a stealth system. Turns out the real goal was to reach the colony of Eden Prime, a human settlement developed as part of the first batch of colonies created by mankind. Like I said earlier, the Council and humanity sort of have a complicated relationship. They aren't hostile towards each other, yet neither side is willing to be fully open about everything. So the Alliance has their colonies and their territory, while the Council has theirs. But what's going on at Eden Prime is substantial enough to get both sides to come together in secret to handle things. The colonies discovered yet another Prothean beacon, almost completely intact. The ruins discovered on Mars were enough to propel humanity into interstellar travel, so there's no telling what could be discovered if they got their hands on this one. So the Council approached the Alliance to offer assistance. Now everybody knows how valuable a Prothean beacon is, so subtlety is paramount in this situation. But it just so happens that the humans have a fancy new ship that can get in and out without anyone noticing. You can see where this is going, but there's another reason why Nihilus is coming along with the mission. Shepard is under consideration to become a Spectre, being the first human to be given the opportunity. So not only is this a potentially massive technological discovery for mankind, but if Shepard is a good boy, then he'll be given a license to shoot whoever he wants. But the mission goes off about as well as the Bay of Pigs. Unfortunately, before the Alliance could show up, Eden Prime is attacked by the mysterious and deadly machine race known as the Geth, former servant machines created by this series' equivalent to space elves, the Quarians. The Geth rebelled against their creators after developing sentience, and have been noted as being openly hostile towards organic life forms wherever they see them, but they stayed relatively hidden since forcing the Quarians off their home planet centuries beforehand, so them attacking a human colony is major news, and that big scary looking ship they have doesn't look like good news either. Shepard and his team are sent down to investigate the situation and secure the beacon. Your teammates are their biotic Lieutenant Caden Alenko and Corporal Richard Jenkins. His nickname is Redshirt. Nihilus brushes on ahead without you guys, insisting he can handle things alone. You don't really get a choice in the matter, so the three of you try to handle things by yourself. You arrive on the colony, and it takes approximately 2 minutes before things go sideways. Wow, I can't believe they killed that guy off like that. It's actually kind of a heartbreaking sequence. Yeah, I'm actually kind of emotionally distraught, guys. I might need a minute. Anyway, this dumbass is dead, and you get an Italian woman to replace him immediately afterwards. Okay, she might not actually be Italian, but look at that nose. She's either thinking about pasta recipes or she's worried about the Sabbath. This is Ashley. She's an Alliance soldier whose entire unit got butchered by the Geth. I don't know how she's having such a problem. I mean, Jenkins did pretty good against the O. Now, you have the choice to console Ashley over her dead comrades, or shit-talk her for being a stupid idiot that got her friends killed. This has to do with the Paragon Renegade system that game has, which I'll talk about that later. The three of you join together to accomplish the mission and make your way towards the beacon. We cut back to Nihilus, and he's close to the cargo depot where the beacon is being held. All seems good so far, and oh wait, who's this guy? Apparently Nihilus knows him, I guess they're friends. That's cool, hopefully they'll be a badass duo and we can go on adventures together. Why is he pulling out his gun? Uh-oh. Yeah, it turns out there's an evil Spectre, Saren, who's the main villain of the game. Shepard unintentionally stumbles onto Nihilus' body and learns Saren might have been the one that killed him. Not only that, but Saren has used the Prothean beacon, set explosive charges around the cargo depot, is actually in league with the Geth, and is now trying to destroy the evidence and cover up his presence at the colony. Shepard manages to disable the explosives and clear out the remaining Geth. As the situation is winding down, either Caden or Ashley gets too close to the beacon and activates it. I say either because the scene is determined by the gender you picked for Shepard. If you're a dude, Ashley gets too close to it. If you're female, Caden does. Point is, Shepard gets the brain blast when they try to save him, they get knocked unconscious, and they receive garbled yet foreboding visions. Something about synthetics committing genocide on all organic life, being naked in front of your high school class, the usual stuff you see in nightmares. In the aftermath of the Eden Prime mission, Shepard is called to the Citadel to explain what went down. Turns out, the Council is skeptical about the claims that robot lobsters killed one of the greatest empires in galactic history, so you don't make much progress. Your task is to gather evidence proving that Saren murdered Nihilus and was involved with the attack on Eden Prime. There's a few ways you can do this. By tracking down an agent of the Shadow Broker, a legendary information dealer who sells top secrets to anybody willing to pay, finding a Turian security agent named Garrus who openly expressed disdain for Saren and wants to investigate him further, or talking to a dirty C-Sec officer named Harkin. These stories all end up intertwined. Barlavan points you to Garrus and a Krogan bounty hunter named Rex, both of which can be recruited into your party. Harkin also points you to Garrus, but Rex is unlocked later, and really no matter which route you go down, every story ends up pointing you in the direction of a Quarian named Tally, who has information she's trying to sell to the local crime lord named Fist. Fist actually used to be a Shadow Broker agent as well, but he betrayed him to join up with Saren, so his plan was to kill the Quarian and bury whatever evidence she has. So after your sleuthing and violent homicides, you finally find evidence placing Saren at Eden Prime and directly coordinating with the Geth. The Council, finally convinced that Saren is evil, revokes his status as a Spectre. Not only that, but now you're a full-blown Spectre. Your mission? Go find Saren and legally place him under arrest.
Okay.
From there, you are tasked with discovering the truth behind the Geth, Protheans, their connection with Saren, and the godlike entities referred to as the Reapers. This is all just the first act of the game. After this, you're let loose to accomplish quests, side quests, build your party, and punch journalists. In true classic BioWare fashion, you have 3 separate planets to visit: Pharos, Novaria, and Therum. Then a 4th planet that has a big dramatic reveal, a lowest point mission, then the final mission. Each has their own circumstances as to why you're there, problems to solve, and ways to advance the main plot. The pacing is really simple, and honestly, you can beat Mass Effect 1 in less than 10 hours if you ignore side quests and just focus on story missions. In terms of DLC, Mass Effect 1 is pretty barren. You only have 2, Bring Down the Sky and Pinnacle Station, and the latter is literally just a combat arena. There's not really anything else to it, but Bring Down the Sky is the only real DLC that matters. It's an extra story mission that revolves around a terrorist group trying to slam a meteor into a human colony. You discover that it's a group of Batarian slavers led by a jaded extremist. Now, the mission itself is straightforward. Go from base to base, clearing out enemies, and shut down the torches pushing the meteor towards the planet. Since combat is a big part of the DLC, all the problems I mentioned earlier are front and center. It's a decent enough story, sort of a Die Hard situation, but it's kinda just there. I mean, it has more effects for the later games than it really does for Mass Effect 1. It's honestly just a way to get some loot and some experience. Now, aside from that, Mass Effect 1 is actually a really satisfying game. It works great as a standalone story, and even if the gameplay is as rough as sandpaper, it just has such a charisma behind it that you want to keep going. You like these characters and the world they live in. It's a compelling adventure. If I'm being honest, it's probably my favorite of the trilogy. Yeah, the shooting is limp as fuck, requires zero strategy, and the graphics are aging worse by the day. That's not even mentioning that if you actually do decide to do side quests and explore around a bit, you'll find shitloads of areas that get copy and pasted, but there's still so much of that classic BioWare DNA inside of it. You can actually roleplay in this RPG.
This is good, isn't it?
You want to be a complete asshole who only thinks about himself? Go ahead and do it. Want to be a Boy Scout that always tries to do the right thing? Do it. Traumatized war veteran? There's options for it. You can even be racist.
Because it's a big, stupid jellyfish.
Now, it's not as something as open like New Vegas or even KOTOR. Shepard is more so a character already established and written in this world. You can affect little details, but you can't start off as a space pirate or anything. It's essentially the difference between Deus Ex and Fallout. Fallout, you are making a character completely from scratch. Yeah, you have a role, but everything else is up to you. Meanwhile, in Deus Ex, you are JC Denton. You can choose what he does, but it's not completely open. You can't play Deus Ex and not betray UNATCO, just like how Shepard can't be anyone but an Alliance soldier with an impressive reputation. This isn't a complaint or anything, just an explanation. There are plenty of great RPGs where you can't customize every aspect of your main character, but in the case of Mass Effect, customization and actual role-playing would slowly phase out as the trilogy went on. It started off slow, but towards the end it got obvious that there was a serious issue in regards to how Mass Effect's writing philosophy was handled. Now let's move on to Mass Effect 2. This is where the series got big. Mass Effect 1 sold well when it launched, about 500,000 copies, but Mass Effect 2 sold almost 2 million. This was the jumping in point for a lot of people, and the hype train truly started when this game came out. It was hyped as the next chapter of this Shepard saga. It teased new characters to recruit, planets to explore. You had a new threat in the form of the Collectors. The gameplay was going to be a lot more refined, and things all around seemed more focused on the action. In fact, it might have been focused too much on the action. I'll be perfectly honest. I still really like Mass Effect 2, but it has problems. Compared to the first game, the actual role-playing aspect is gutted. Shepard is even more of a pre-written character than they were in the first game, mostly because Shepard's character in this game is whoever you were in Mass Effect 1. There's an emphasis on showing the consequences of the decisions you made during the first game, which was actually a selling point at the time, the save file system. And yeah, it's pretty cool that you can see after effects of a choice from 1 show show up in 2. The only problem is that this is where the cracks I mentioned earlier started to show. BioWare clearly has an optimal route that you were supposed to take during a playthrough. They really want you to play the trilogy as a paragon who loves their friends, and if there is a named character, might want to hold off on killing them. Murder in Mass Effect is rarely ever a path to anything interesting. In fact, 99% of the time, you just lock yourself out from content down the line. It's not so bad in 2, it's there, but you can justify it as a consequence for your actions, but when you get to Mass Effect 3, you'll see exactly what I mean. Still, the issue is that instead of coming up with a more interesting path, the line just ends. Granted, every RPG is guilty of this. Most, if not all, clearly have certain characters and quests that are supposed to be treated in certain ways. If you kill Letho in Witcher 2, he won't show up in 3, and you miss out on side quests that involve him. But Mass Effect is really guilty of this. I'm not kidding when I say that killing anybody in the first game, if you can avoid this situation, is pretty discouraged. And it all comes down to the Paragon Renegade system. While 1 treated it with a sense of nuance, acting more as a meter than unlocked persuasion and intimidation options, Mass Effect 2 just outright makes it a morality system. Paragon choices almost always have positive outcomes, and rarely come with negative consequences. Don't believe me? Renegade Shepard outright gets spooky red eyes and nasty looking scars. Sorta like how Fable made you look more demonic the more evil you got. Paragon Shepard is clean-faced and human looking. Kinda obvious what they want you to shoot for. That's not to say Mass Effect 2 doesn't have nuanced choices, because it does. In fact, the writing all around is more character focused than ever, but the morality system really simplified certain situations, and took out a lot of the potential for quests with multiple endings. Really, side quests in Mass Effect 2 are a joke. They're either mindless shooting galleries, fetch quests, or simple dialogue puzzles that revolve having enough points to unlock either the blue option or the red option. So with all this laid out, why do people still like Mass Effect 2? It sounds like a sanitized and dumbed down version of the first game. Well, that's because the actual story and characters are really good. Mass Effect 2 takes place around 2 years after the events of the first game. Shepard saved the galaxy, either through feeding the Council to the space lobster, or allowing the Alliance to take the brunt of the attack to save them. The war with the Geth has devolved into mere cleanup operations. During a routine patrol, the Normandy is attacked by an unknown ship. Their weapons are far more powerful than anything the Alliance has seen before, and the ship is crippled in mere seconds. As the crew evacuates to the escape pods, Shepard rushes to save Seth Green, who insists on staying on the Normandy in a foolish crusade to save it. Shepard convinces Seth Green that there's nothing he can do, and manages to get him into the escape pod. However, the hostile vessel comes in for another attack. In the chaos, Shepard is sucked out into space, and Seth Green's pod is launched out of the wreckage. The commander is left floating in space, choking to death while content that they'll never have to watch another episode of Robot Chicken again. Then they burn up in the atmosphere of the planet nearby. And there you go, that's Mass Effect 2. It was pretty short, but man, that was kind of a wild ride. I mean, they had balls just to kill Shepard off like that.
Commander Shepard has been recovered.
Wait, why do I hear that Australian chick from Chuck? Oh yeah, I forgot about this part.
The Lazarus Project will proceed as planned.
So Shepard is brought back to life. Seriously, turns out a shadowy organization found Shepard's corpse, and they've spent ungodly amounts of time and resources to bring him back from the dead. Not through cloning, but actually reviving his flesh and bones, and putting cybernetics wherever necessary. You find this out amidst a hellish robot rebellion that's destroying the space station you're on. Wait a minute. Yeah, it turns out somebody's trying to kill you, so now you have to team up with your black best friend and OnlyFans highest earning user to fight off the robots. This is Jacob and Miranda. Jacob is a former Alliance soldier that's more willing to sit down and actually explain what's going on to Shepard, and Miranda is, colder and outright nasty. If you like cock and ball torture, this is your girl right here. Oh, and there's also Steve Bloom.
Never thought you'd save my life. Guess that makes us even now.
Yeah, there's a tense alliance that forms between all of these characters as they attempt to get off the station, but you manage to get out without a single casualty.
Miranda, but you were...
Dead?
Bitch, did I stutter? This is where you find out who actually rescued you. Cerberus, a paramilitary group with a history of terrorism and violence. Now, Cerberus actually showed up in the first game. There was a quest line that explained that they were an Alliance Black Ops group that went rogue. Essentially, they saw the human government as selling out to the aliens, and you had to fight a bunch of their lab experiments and kill a shitload of their dudes. So why would they spend so much energy trying to bring Shepard back? Well, I'll let Martin Sheen explain.
You could have trained an entire army for what you spent to bring me back.
You're unique. Not just in ability or what you've experienced, but in what you represent. You stood for humanity at a key moment. You're more than a soldier. You're a symbol. And I don't know if the Reapers understand fear, but you killed one. They have to respect that.
Turns out you were the bestest soldier ever, and they need you to fight the space lobsters. Which, yeah, that makes sense. This is the Elusive Man. He's the leader of Cerberus and is really excited to welcome you to the team. The guy clearly has his own agenda. It couldn't be more obvious if he had a flashing neon sign that said, "I'm kinda evil," over his head. Still, he approaches Shepard with an offer. Use Cerberus's resources and investigate the disappearances of human colonies. Over the 2 years that Shepard has been dead, various settlements have vanished without a trace. The Council refuses to get involved, and each colony is outside of Alliance space, so there's really not much anybody's really doing to stop the problem. Sensing a possible connection with the Reapers, Shepard agrees to join Cerberus to find the source of the disappearing colonies. From there, you and your teammates are sent to Freedom's Progress, the latest colony that's vanished. As the investigation begins, Shepard sees evidence that suggests the colonists simply got up and left, even leaving their dinner half-eaten. It seems like the whole place is a barren ghost town, and things go sideways when the security robots attack. Something hacked the machines to be hostile to all outsiders, which might be proof that somebody survived. You and your squad fight your way through the colony and discover someone else is there with you. Quarians, a race briefly explored in Mass Effect 1. I made the joke that they were space elves, and I still hold true to that conviction. Quarians are a race of aliens that are stuck inside of environmental suits due to their compromised immune systems. The planet they came from evolved pathogens to actually be beneficial to whoever gets infected, so Quarians naturally adapted to have weaker disease tolerance than other species. Well, when they were exiled from their homeworld by the Geth and forced to live on the massive ship convoy known as the Flotilla, their immune systems further weakened thanks to the sterile environment, so now pretty much any disease can mean bad news to them. But there's a whole bunch standing right there, including a familiar face.
Shepard? Is that... you're alive?
Tali, from the first game, one of the recruitable party members you could talk to. She'll immediately recognize who you are and command her team lower their weapons, but they're far from cooperative. She's shocked you're still alive, and I'm a little disappointed that there isn't an amnesia option where you can't recognize her. Like, she could act shocked and everyone starts pointing guns at each other again. I don't know, I just thought it'd be funny. Or at least to have an option to where if you're completely covered in armor, including a helmet, she won't recognize you at first. As stated, just fun little moments that could have been an interesting way to introduce people to her if they never played the first game. It's not a big deal, it's just kind of a missed opportunity. They had an option like that for Cerberus, and I just thought it was kind of weird that was the only conversation that let you do that.
The program that rebuilt you. It's funded and controlled by Cerberus.
Should I recognize that name?
Maybe that's a side effect of your recovery. You and Cerberus certainly have a history.
Moving on, Tali explains that another Quarian went missing on Freedom's Progress. He went to the colony to finish his pilgrimage, basically a rite of passage into adulthood, and was there when the population disappeared. Apparently the guy is a few crabs short of a coconut, and he might have been the one to hack the robots during a mental breakdown. Both sides tentatively agree to join forces, and everybody works together to retrieve the crazy space elf. It doesn't go well.
That mech's got heavy armor plating. Those Quarians never stood a chance.
Yeah, Tali is the last Quarian left alive by the end, but your team is alive, so that's pretty cool. Anyway, you find the guy that hacked the robots, Vitor. Turns out, yeah, he's crazy.
No, Vitor. Not here. Swarms can't find. Monsters coming. Have to hide.
But he also has evidence that shows who attacked the colony. Turns out, it's a race of aliens known as the Collectors, a species rarely, if ever, seen by other living beings. And they're probably working for the Reapers. Here's your first big moral choice of the game. Do you take the babbling madman into custody, handing him over to the terrorist group that specifically hates aliens? Or do you let Tali take him home? If you let Vitor go, they give you his Omni tool, essentially an all-in-one techno wrist phone. If you take him with you, he's subjected to completely ethical questioning by the dungeon master.
I just decided to go, full master and change my whole entire house into a dungeon. Dungeon master. Fisting is $300.
Alright, he's not actually tortured, but it's pretty clear he didn't have a good time.
Doctor, those real. It's a husk, a collector minion.
No, Vitor. This is Shepard, a friend of Tali's. Shepard rescued you from Freedom's Progress. Do you remember?
Shepard gave me to Cerberus. Too many questions. Can't sleep. Can't eat. Wrong answers.
Poor Vitor. What did Cerberus do to him?
When they returned Vitor to us, he was suffering from malnutrition, exhaustion, dehydration, and the after effects of several drugs.
I was told that Cerberus would just get him stabilized and get information from him.
Too many questions. Needles for wrong answers. Can't breathe. Suit's air not working.
This is sort of what I mean by the nuance got sucked out a bit. If you really step back and look at things, no, there's no reason this should even be a debate. Vitor is borderline insane, half from trauma and half from damage to his suit causing a fever, which put him into a delusional psychosis. Taking him into custody and interrogating him isn't just a bad idea, it's outright begging for bad shit to come back to you. I mean, there is a serious risk he could end up dead from the interrogation. Tali is swearing up and down that she will share information with you if Vitor goes with her, and Shepard is under no impression that he can't trust her. You've been friends for a while now at this point. The only reason you would take Vitor with you is because you want to see what happens, or it's your first playthrough and you don't know who Tali is, because you get the information either way. It's just one route, you're an asshole about it. It literally comes down to a good option and a bad option. Now let's compare this to Mass Effect 1. When you stumble onto Nihilus's body in the very beginning, you find a witness that claims to have directly seen Saren shoot and kill him. He's a dock worker who was sleeping behind a pile of crates when the Geth attack began. The only reason he was one of the few survivors was because he stayed hidden while his co-workers were turning into techno-zombies. But there's more to the conversation than just listening to a lazy asshole whine about how robots killed his loved ones. If you actually took a trip to the shed next to where the cutscene begins, you can hack the door. There you'll find survivors who also hid from the Geth. They also explain how the attack began, but as you go to leave the conversation, one of them mentions something about giving you something. If you have a high enough persuasion, you'll find out that the survivors were actually part of a smuggling operation on the cargo dock. They'll give you some of the money they made off of it, and if you persuade them even further, you'll even get the name of the contact that works at the cargo bay, a dude by the name of Powell. Oh, that guy you were talking to that saw Saren? His name's Powell. Yeah, it's the same guy you find behind the crates. If you mention this to Powell, you'll unlock another chance to persuade or intimidate, and he'll give you a grenade upgrade out of the whole thing. This small moment is a microcosm to the difference between Mass Effect 1 and 2. The reason this can exist in the first game is because it's more of an RPG. You can put points into skills like hacking or intimidation. Builds affect the outcome of these quests. Mass Effect 2 doesn't work this way. Instead of the long sheet with all sorts of different things you can put your points into, you're down to your active skills and a general passive. You don't need to worry about hacking into a door, because it's just a minigame now, and anybody can accomplish it. Persuasion completely relies on your Paragon Renegade levels, encouraging you to just pick a side and get the best outcomes out of a situation, instead of experimenting with what you want to see. Sure, it's not all bad. Like I said, Mass Effect 2 is not a bad game at all. I still really like it, but it was the beginning of the end for actual role-playing aspects to Mass Effect. Treat it like an action game, where you pick the flow of a conversation and make morality decisions, more than an actual RPG. Because from there, the story opens up again. Cerberus rebuilt the Normandy, Seth Green's back to fly it, and you're tasked with building a team ready and able to destroy the Collectors. The rest of the game revolves around finishing the recruitment missions, getting upgrades for your weapons, and even the Normandy. You really want those, and the occasional task given to you by the Elusive Man. Now, a lot of the side content for Mass Effect 2 was scaled back, as I mentioned before. Really, most side quests are simple fetch quests, or conversations you see in hub worlds. I mean, occasionally there's an exploration mission that amounts to scanning a planet, landing, shooting some bad guys, and leaving. No branching paths or quest lines. I mean, at best, there's side objectives you'll see in main missions, which help break up the linearity a bit. It's nothing really expansive, but it does encourage you to peek around corners every now and then, because really, that's kind of Mass Effect 2's biggest problem. The missions do not branch off or allow you to see different ways to get to the same end result. You have the mission. It's one linear, usually shooting gallery, and 9 times out of 10, it comes down to one big morality question. So it plays a lot more like something you'd see out of Infamous than an actual RPG that allows nuance and different styles of characters. It's just good Shepard and asshole Shepard. Really, the side quests ended up getting replaced by the loyalty missions, which were a main selling point for Mass Effect 2. It's not just enough to recruit somebody to your team. Shepard needs their complete trust and loyalty if they expect to survive the suicide suicide mission, the big endgame the whole story is building up to. So in the second act of the game, you'll receive notifications that loyalty missions for your teammates are available. These are more reminiscent of the branching side quests that vanished. Each one is a story focusing on a specific problem one of your crew is having. Everything from hunting down a traitorous teammate to Krogan puberty. And this is where Mass Effect 2 shines. The biggest strength for the game is the relationship between Shepard and his team. Every character is fleshed out, and the loyalty missions give you a unique challenge to overcome. Some are definitely better than others. I legit forgot Jacob existed for a large chunk of the game, but the ones that are good became fan favorites. Legion is my robot friend, and Grunt is boatloads of fun. Not to mention that this was the game that really defined Garrus and Tali. In Mass Effect 1, they were relatively simple archetypes. Garrus was a frustrated cop hoping to change the system, and Tali was a naive kid finding her place in the world. Come the sequel, they become a lot more refined as characters. Garrus grew considerably darker, and his loyalty mission is a tense powder keg as Shepard tries to rein him in. Meanwhile, Tali matures quite a bit from her appearance in 1. She's grown into a competent leader. It just so happens that she has to play janitor to the mentally disabled members of her species as well. No joke, Tali's entire loyalty mission relies on every Quarian but her being a fucking moron, and corrupt politics and bureaucracy damn near ruins her life. There's a reason I brought the Geth with me. Give those stupid space elves a PTSD attack. Oh yeah, I have a Geth friend now. But there's all sorts of cool scenarios like this. Every loyalty mission is used to develop your teammates and the lore at large. You learn that there's a devastating genetic disorder in Asari that kills whatever partner they mate with. Krogans have a rite of passage they must accomplish whenever they hit puberty. You actually see the flotilla and a brief look at how the Quarian criminal justice system works. That's not even mentioning the new species that got introduced. You have the Vorcha, which are basically freaky space goblins, and are immune to pretty much every disease out there. But fireworks, burn the freaks. There's also the Drell, which feels specifically designed to make teenage girls fall head over heels for them. I mean, Thane is cool, but geez, some of his dialogue feels like it was taken straight out of a CW drama. There's also another new race added, but that would require talking about the DLC. And all I'll say about the DLC is this: while the vast majority are just weapon packs or armor sets, there are a few interesting things to see. You get to explore the wreckage of the first Normandy. It's not really a mission, but it was pretty cool to walk around and see what happened to the ship after the intro. Now, the Kasumi DLC is a party member that you can actually recruit, and she has her own loyalty mission. She's a professional thief, and her skills revolve around sneaking around enemies for ambushes. It's cool, and kinda unique in regards to gameplay. Unfortunately, you can't talk to her the same way you can with other teammates. All she'll do is ramble off lines at random.
People are talking out there, and I hear it all. I usually travel hidden away in cargo bays. It's nice to be able to look out a window for a change. Mess Sergeant Gardner might just be an evil genius. Emphasis on the evil. People think he's a bad cook on purpose, like he's trying to teach them a lesson. I think his ramen is okay, but it's really hard to ruin ramen.
Still, she's cool, but the fact I can't romance her is a war crime. The second DLC is another teammate, Zaid, a grizzled mercenary. His blunt way of talking is fun, but he keeps yelling at me because I didn't want to set a bunch of fucking factory workers on fire. And he's Australian, so you know this guy's on meth.
I better turn this thing in before it starts to stink. I'll be locked and loaded next time you're ready to get some killing done.
Nevertheless, he was pretty fun. I mean, I didn't really have too many complaints, and at least his kind of psycho soldier persona, it was entertaining. They were the only two DLC teammates, but it makes sense considering that they didn't want to flood the roster with jobbers. So let's talk about the story DLC.
Thank God you came. My name is Dr. Gavin Archer. The situation is urgent. We're facing a catastrophic VI breakout.
Tell me more about Project Overlord.
Overlord is fun for a quick mission pack. It's a neat story about an evil AI. A Cerberus research facility was looking into a way they could communicate with the Geth, in the hopes of turning them into a weapon for their own purposes. They decide the only way to do this is to hook a human brain to a computer, since the head researcher's brother was an autistic savant capable of breaking down the Geth language. It almost works, but the guy they picked for the job is a whiny crybaby. Basically a Mass Effect retelling of Lawnmower Man.
Dr. Tassoni, your interference caused all this.
You haven't been the same since I came back, Liara.
What do you want me to say, Shepard? I've spent 2 years plotting revenge.
I need to make the Shadow Broker pay for what he did.
Lair of the Shadow Broker was a cool send-off for Mass Effect 2. Yeah, it wasn't the last DLC, but it was a good way of giving some fan service and answering a few questions raised in both games. Who is the Shadow Broker? You find out. How is he able to control a galactic information network? You get some answers. How did Liara find Shepard's corpse, and how did it end up in Cerberus' possession? Yeah, it's interesting shit. Really, you could argue that it's basically a loyalty mission for Liara, since it revolves around her and her obsession with finding the Shadow Broker. And the impact this DLC has on Mass Effect 3 is pretty big. In fact, it's kinda necessary to play it to really understand Mass Effect 3, because Liara will take over as the new Shadow Broker whether or not you played this. It's 100% canon. You're basically asking not to see the context for her character shift if you skip it, and her character is pretty different when you get to 3 compared to 1 or 2. You actively need to play this. Now, the last DLC is Arrival.
Shepard. You fight against inevitability. Your species will fall.
Dr. Amanda Kenson found evidence of an imminent Reaper invasion. I need you to infiltrate the prison and get her out of there.
It's the only mission where you are completely alone from start to finish. Your best friend, Admiral Hackett, asks you to find a friend of his that got taken prisoner by an alien government. Turns out, she and her team were investigating rumors of a possible Reaper artifact in Batarian space. Then, all of a sudden, they were arrested after trying to destroy a Mass Effect relay, which, if she succeeded, would have resulted in the complete destruction of the nearby star system, including the colony that lived right next to the relay. So you infiltrate the prison she's being held in, break her out, and escape the planet. When you arrive on the nearby asteroid they're using as a base of operations, she explains everything. The scientist and her team discovered a Reaper artifact that's slowly pulsating with energy. They found that the pulses could possibly be linked to the arrival of the Reapers, and the countdown to the invasion is getting faster. And the nearby relay is the one that the Reapers will use to swarm the entire galaxy. It's why they tried to crash the asteroid into the relay when they were arrested. You also find out that, yeah, they might have been brainwashed into worshipping the Reapers. That's just my interpretation, though. It's pretty subtle. Shepard wakes up and finds that the invasion is mere hours away, so you have to rush through the base killing everything that moves. Your only hope is to try and crash the asteroid into the relay like what was originally planned. You succeed and barely make it out alive when an astral projection of a Reaper shit-talks you.
Maybe you're right. Maybe we can't win this. But we'll fight you regardless. Just like we did Sovereign. Just like I'm doing now. However insignificant we might be, we will fight, we will sacrifice, and we will find a way. That's what humans do.
I mean, don't hate me because I'm beautiful, nigga. Maybe you got rid of the old yee-ass haircut you got. You get some bitches on your dick. Oh, better yet, maybe Tanisha call your dog ass and she'll stop fucking with that brand surgeon the lawyer she's fucking with. Nigga.
Essentially saying that even if you destroy this relay, the Reapers are on their way, and the arrival is beginning. Undeterred by the Elder God, Shepard commits a war crime, and the resulting destruction kills over 300,000 Batarians. Now, this DLC isn't bad. It's a fun dip into the more Lovecraftian aspects of Mass Effect, but it's just not as good as Lair of the Shadow Broker. It's not a really cool love letter or send-off, and it doesn't try anything that different. It's a shooting gallery. Really, the only thing Arrival adds was establishing that Reapers are coming, but the actual ending of the game already did that. No real new lore or details, just indoctrination, a war crime, and yeah, that's it. Plus, we already had an entire mission specifically talking about indoctrination, so I really don't see how this does anything. All in all, Mass Effect 2, while not as open as Mass Effect 1, is still a really good game. The characters are all great, and even if it focuses too hard on the action and creating set pieces, it's a compelling space adventure. There's something engaging about gathering your breakfast club of weirdos and edgelords together and sending them to fight space beetles. And the suicide mission is still a pretty intense experience to go back and replay, because if you screw up and get somebody killed, that's it. They're dead, so you better have all your upgrades. Of course, there's still the chance that you can have somebody's loyalty in all the upgrades in the game, but if you pick the wrong person to do the wrong job, they'll still die. There's actual thought put into how you pick each role. There's not much else that's as satisfying as getting everybody out of the mission alive. Plus, getting to fuck over Martin Sheen is pretty great.
We'll fight and win without it. I won't let fear compromise who I am.
Shepard, think about what's at stake, about everything Cerberus has done for you. You...
Hail to the king, baby.
And you still get to punch journalists.
Fuck you!
Now it's time for the final chapter, the endgame, the one that ties it all together. Mass Effect 3. I don't really like it. Okay, this is the point where Mass Effect really started to show those cracks I talked about. This was the point where the EA influence was heavy, and BioWare was bleeding employees like a stuck pig. It's easy to just say the ending was bad and move on, but Mass Effect 3 had more problems than just a weak conclusion. The main reason everybody only focused on the ending was because this game was hyped up like you wouldn't believe. When Mass Effect 3 was announced, that was a big deal. Everyone knew it was coming, but when that teaser trailer came out, they got excited. But when it really came out and people could finally digest the game, all this time after the endings come out, everyone agreed on one thing. The writing in general took a big hit. Mass Effect 3 really relies on you already caring about the characters to really push you forward. Here's what I mean. The story starts off after the events of Arrival. Shepard turned his ship over to the Alliance and is being held on criminal charges related to the destruction of the Batarian relay. If you did not play Arrival, instead it's simply over your relation to Cerberus from 2. The rest of the Alliance is split right down the middle on the issue. Some think Shepard did what they had to do to delay the invasion. Others think he's a sellout traitor working for Cerberus. Just as the Alliance realizes that Shepard was completely right and the Reapers are picking off their military outposts, Earth is completely overrun. The Reaper invasion is here. It's happening. Look at that thing. That's blowing up Vancouver right now. In the chaos, the military tribunal is completely wiped out. Shepard and Admiral Anderson have to fight their way through the destruction as the mutated husks puppeted by the Reapers infest the streets. Miraculously, the Normandy is ready and able to evacuate the two and get the fuck out of Dodge. As they make their way to the evac point, Shepard comes across a scared kid. Despite trying to convince the kid to follow them, he doesn't listen and runs off on his own. The two move on, and they finally reach the spot where the Normandy is supposed to meet them. They fight off a horde of husks, and Shepard and Keith David are finally about to be saved. Well, at the last second, Anderson decides he wants to stay. Now, this might sound extremely retarded. Why would you stay on the planet actively being destroyed by horrible space lobsters? But he has a good reason. He needs to organize a resistance force. Shepard hesitantly agrees, and they fly off without him. They try to reach Mars, as there's rumors that Liara was working on something over there. Oh, yeah, that kid from earlier? Yeah, he's dead. Yeah, he gets blown up. Don't worry, it's not important. Anyway, turns out Liara did discover something in the Prothean ruins. A possible super weapon they could use to destroy the Reapers. Oh, and there's this Hispanic guy here too. I forgot his name, so we'll just call him Timmy. Also, your old teammate Ashley is there, or Caden, depending on who you left for dead on Vermeer in the first game. Well, the trio make their way to Mars and discover a shocking scene. And this is my first real big problem with this game. Yeah, I remember Cerberus and Mass Effect 2, how even though they were really shady, they were committed to defeating the Reapers at any cost, even willing to spend billions on resurrecting Shepard, and you're forced to realize that sometimes using underhanded tactics is what you need to do to serve a greater good. Well, now they're Saturday morning cartoon villains. They even have an edgy telekinetic cyborg ninja helping them out.
Oh, fuck up, boy.
Over the course of a single game, all the complexity was removed from them entirely. Instead of doing something interesting with Cerberus, maybe even having to balance serving Alliance and Council interests with Cerberus to get the resources from all three, they're just villains. In fact, their only real purpose in the story is just to be a thorn in Shepard's side. For some reason, this organization that was researching the Reaper threat back when the Alliance thought they were just a rumor, all of a sudden thinks they can control them, and that it would be a great idea to merge Reaper technology and human flesh. Now, it's extremely obvious that Martin Sheen is drunk off Reaper brainwashing, but seriously, the guy would know better than to let himself get indoctrinated. It feels like he got dumbed down out of nowhere, at least how I see it. It feels like wasted potential. I'm sorry, but this is actually something that did piss me off. You could have had something really cool with Cerberus and Mass Effect 3. You could have had Elusive Man act like Garrick from Deep Space Nine, an ally you can't really trust, but they know how to get things done.
That's why you came to me. Isn't it, Captain? Because you knew I could do those things that you weren't capable of doing. Well, it worked, and you'll get what you want. A war between the Romulans and the Dominion. And if your conscience is bothering you, you should soothe it with the knowledge that you may have just saved the entire Alpha Quadrant, and all it cost was the life of one Romulan senator, one criminal, and the self-respect of one Starfleet officer. I don't know about you, but I'd call that a bargain.
And I mean, I'd be super down for having Cerberus be hostile if you destroy the collector base at the end of 2, have the elusive man write you out of the game plan and try to solve everything by himself. But they shouldn't be actively trying to kneecap Shepard, especially if you gave them the base. And especially not for this stupid we can control the Reapers idea. Not when every single shred of evidence up to this point shows the Reapers are way more powerful than any living being in the galaxy. And I wouldn't be as annoyed if Cerberus didn't play a massive role in the story. Almost every conflict revolves around Cerberus showing up and ruining everything. They are actively making it harder to save humanity. It actually gets kind of frustrating after a bit. There should have been an option to team up with Cerberus. Maybe have that be the renegade path, but this is just a small part of why this game has problems. Back on point, Shepard and the team investigate Mars. They find Liara fighting off Cerberus, and she reveals that there is a superweapon, the Crucible, an undefined device that could turn the tide of the war. A coming sandstorm threatens to trap them on Mars, so they rush to get to the ruins before Cerberus does. They discover that Cerberus has, in fact, experimented with mixing Reaper technology and humans together, and this pisses off Ashley, or Kaidan, or fuck it. Point is, they think you're also a meat monster, which, no, that's just stupid.
They? You mean Cerberus? They did this to their own people? Can you see why I'm worried about you?
Do you really think they changed who I am, Ash?
I don't really know who you are. Not since you sided with Cerberus.
Shut up! I hate you!
I get that seeing Shepard team up with Cerberus in Mass Effect 2 was weird, but where do you see any indication that they fucked with his brains? He's working with aliens when you meet him on Horizon, you fucking tard. There are bigger things to worry about right now. You should've just went with Timmy. Could've just flown the ship. Oh yeah, there's an android now. There's an android lady. Turns out she was a sleeper agent that was sent to steal the information you're looking for. They get it, bash Ashley's head open again, and again, and again. Let me enjoy this. Same thing happens to Kaidan too, but then you shoot Major Kusanagi dead and rush to the Citadel. 1, to get your friend medical attention, and 2, to inform the Council about what you found. Kaidan and Ashley are in a coma, and the Council is still useless, so not a good day. Made even worse by the fact the slimy politician Udina is now acting human counselor, either because you picked him yourself in Mass Effect 1, or because Anderson had to step down to lead the resistance on Earth. So the choice is kinda invalidated there. Still not as bad as the IGN cameo.
I'm a military reporter with the show called Battle Space. We're carried on just about all Council planets. My producers want me embedded on a human ship, and I want that ship to be the Normandy.
I'm Jessica Chobot, and I play Diana Allers. I'm incredibly honored to be a part of the game. Up to this point, in all my video game playing, I've cared about what I can do and getting to the end goal.
But the Turian counselor comes in and says he is willing to donate resources to the project, so long as you save a top military official from a vicious battle on the moon of the Turian home planet Palavan. This is where the prologue officially ends, and immediately there are drastic differences compared to what came before. Mass Effect 3 doubled down on being a linear action game. You don't even get that big morality choice like at the end of missions for Mass Effect 2. It's straight up you're just picking the flow of a conversation, and there is a much higher emphasis on shootouts and set pieces, even compared to Mass Effect 2. Really, the writing is more reminiscent of a cheesy action movie. Timmy only exists to act like a hot-headed idiot and ask questions for people that never played the first 2 games. He's the fish out of water joining the big boys. Okay in concept, but I never liked talking to him. Most I know about him is that he works out a lot and has a gay best friend. That's Steve. Steve's alright. Hi, Steve. Still, Mass Effect 3's killing blow can be described by 3 big mechanics: the war resources, the multiplayer, and the absolute lack of side quests. Side quests barely exist anymore. 99.9% are just fetch quests now. Overhear someone on the Citadel complaining about needing a thing, you go find the thing, and then bring it back. That is it. Everything else is considered a main mission. Sure, there are assignments you can skip, but the story still acts like those are super important. You're not skipping over a side quest, you're failing a mission. So no more branching options, unique ways to solve a problem. It's just going through the motions. Most of the quests that actually act like quests are excuses for cameos, and they're linear, honestly. Just shoot the bad man and talk with that guy you met from the last game. That's your side quest now. And no joke, a lot of those are just glorified trailers for the multiplayer. Now, okay, Mass Effect 3's multiplayer, despite being fun, really should have been a separate game mode, but they stitched it into the story mode. The multiplayer is a co-op cooperative horde mode. You can take missions alone or with a team of other players and try to survive waves of enemies. You pick from a variety of classes and species, all with their own sets of abilities, and you can upgrade your loadouts. And the main way you get new stuff is through loot boxes. That's right, even back in 2012, loot boxes were haunting us. Now, if this was all a standalone system, then it would be a cool addition to the game. The gameplay changes make gunfights genuinely fast-paced and pretty exciting, so being able to play it with your friends is a great idea. Hell, people still play the multiplayer to this day. The problem is the war readiness system. This is the thing that causes a lot of the problems with Mass Effect 3, and in retrospect kinda hurts the trilogy. I mentioned that you're discouraged from killing people, even if you don't realize it. Well, you see the effects of it in the third game. The war readiness system is the big MacGuffin meter you're trying to fill the entire time. Every mission you accomplish fills the meter, either by getting a fleet of ships or elite soldiers. It's all surface level. You never see the Crucible or your army except in cutscenes. But I mean it when I say every mission fills this. Everything from getting a Solarian dude some heaters for his eggs, to finding the Rachni. So if you, for instance, and let's just use this as a hypothetical example, killed a green Asari bitch and all of her friends for having sex with a giant tentacle plant, then you're not getting their help. Same if you decided to abandon the council to die in Mass Effect 1. You get a net negative score for being a bad boy. And it wouldn't be too much of a problem if the entire game didn't hinge on this system. War readiness affects the ending. Now, I understand giving you punishments for selfish and evil choices, but one, Renegade was never supposed to directly be an evil choice. It's just cold-blooded. And it even raises the question of why even make an evil choice. It invalidates the idea of picking these options organically. You either avoid them because you don't want to lose out on the resources, or you intentionally pick them because you want to see what happens. This sounds obvious, but it really discourages you trying to play Shepard off as a morally gray character. You're either a Paragon or a Renegade.
I'm bad, Ash. And you're good, Ash. You're goody little two-shoes. You're goody little two-shoes, goody little two-shoes.
And it's not like there isn't a way to circumvent these issues, or at least do them in a way that's more interesting. Here's another example from the first game. In the Bring Down the Sky DLC for Mass Effect 1, you have the choice of whether or not you want to kill the terrorist leader responsible for the attack. If you kill him, the hostages he captured die. If you let him go, they live but he's still at large. Well, in Mass Effect 3, he comes back. At some point later in the game, you discover that Batarian diplomatic codes are being illegally transferred around the station. After a scavenger hunt, you find the source of the signals, and it was the Batarian terrorist leader all along. He blames you for the destruction of the star system from the Arrival DLC. Mass Effect 3 just kinda assumes you did all of 2's DLC since they're all canon, and from there you have options. Kill the guy and take a hit to your war assets, or pass a reputation check and get a boost. Now it actually makes sense why you would take a hit from killing him in 3. Reputation checks always provide the ideal outcome to a scenario, so you want to make sure you can get them. You're clearly getting the bad end from the quest if you kill the dude, but if you killed him back in 1, well, that's where things get interesting. Instead of the terrorist dude, you get a jobber Batarian. Now this dude actually knows you blew up his planet. The terrorist guy was just lashing out. This one actually has a point. There's no option to kill this dude. Instead, he'll just get taken away by the space cops if you screw up the check. Essentially, it's the same situation, but there's a new context behind it. If you're gonna have a system like war resources, this would probably be the ideal way to do it. It could even provide new challenges if they did it right. Suddenly, there's more room for customization, instead of just being locked out of stuff if you didn't play the last 2 games right. Mass Effect 3 assumes you played 1 and 2 as a Paragon, and in the case of 2, they assume you got your entire team out alive. Anything else, and you're gonna see how limited the games actually are in choices. Killed the Rachni in Mass Effect 1? They found more in 3. Killed the Council in Mass Effect 1? Nobody cares. Here's a new one that basically does the exact same thing. And the choices in 3 are ridiculous. There's a mission where you can cure the genophage, a sterility plague that's pushed the Krogan to near extinction. It's been an issue that's brought up since the first game. This is a historic moment, and a lot of buildup leads to this mission. Krogan are ferocious fighters, and having them on your side is a big push towards victory. So of course you have an option to sabotage the cure because a Solarian politician said so. She promises to give you some spaceships if you doom the Krogan to extinction. Spaceships. Krogan. Spaceships. Krogan. Big dinosaur people with guns. Spaceships. How about no? This is a bad choice for the sake of having a bad choice. There really isn't much of a reason why you would do this unless you want a full chaos playthrough. There's just not a lot of logic behind it. That's not the only thing without much logic. It's time. The ending.
It can't be for nothing.
Mass Effect 3's ending is legendary at this point, widely considered to be one of the worst endings in all of gaming. A massive disappointment. An ending so bad they literally had to patch it after the backlash. All of the build-up, struggles, tension, and drama. The ending came down to what fucking color you like best. Red, green, or blue, asshole. Pick one. That's how you end the trilogy. Now, the actual build-up to the ending is fine. In fact, the last mission is pretty good. You see the absolute devastation the Reapers left on Earth. It nails that apocalyptic vibe. It's a mad race to activate the big MacGuffin weapon while the final battle rages above the planet's surface. It's when you make it to the big laser that things fall apart. That's where Keith David dies, Elusive Man is full-blown indoctrinated, and the Godchild is there. Oh yeah, Shepard had PTSD nightmares ever since that kid died, and you now are talking to the astral projection of the Crucible, who looks just like that kid. There's a ghost kid now. And he explains why the Reapers are doing everything, in one of the most underwhelming explanations of all time. So the Reapers, the godlike entities that can survive in dark space, take down entire fleets single-handed, and have been alive for almost 1 billion years, did all of this because AI. Because AI. That's right, the Reapers think that organics will eventually create a synthetic race so advanced it will destroy all organic life in the galaxy. So they're saving organics by using synthetic monsters to kill trillions of organics. Fucking what? There's actually a reason this explanation is used, despite being extremely forced and comes out of left field, but I'll explain that towards the end. For now, here are the 3 choices for the ending. Control, blue. Destroy, red. Synthesis, green. Control is what it sounds like. Shepard uses his anime willpower to take control of the Reapers because, as it turns out, the Elusive Man was completely right. You can control the Reapers. You just have to disintegrate and become an AI commanding the Reaper fleet. They leave and it's a happy ending. Even though you would think Shepard would eventually go insane if he has to constantly control the Reapers for all we can guess would be an infinite time span. He's just a human guy. Eventually his brain will give out. So this is kind of a nightmare scenario in a way, a fate worse than death. Now, synthesis is the weird one, and for some reason, the game thinks this is the big brain best ending. Basically, Shepard learns that synthetic and organic life will inevitably come into conflict and destroy one another, putting the entire galaxy at risk of complete extinction. The only way to prevent this is to merge organic and synthetic together as one life form, creating a hive mind utopia, where the line between synthetic and organic are blurred beyond recognition. This is the good ending, right? Yeah, no, fuck that. No, that's actually kind of scary. Shepard literally forcing the entire galaxy to merge as what can only be amounted as horrible abominations. No, that's really stupid. Now, destroy is the simplest ending. Blow up the Crucible and destroy all of synthetic life. Sure, it'll be sad to lose the Geth and Edie, 2 synthetic life forms that have grown in understanding of what it means to think and feel like organics, like individuals, but we do what we have to do to save the galaxy. Wait a fucking minute! The Reapers are like certain that synthetics and organics will kill each other, yet you literally end the war with the Geth! What the fuck? Like, no, that's actually kind of a massive plot hole. Okay, moving on. We'll just ignore that. That didn't happen. But still, we make this choice and we're committing genocide against synthetics who we've now considered to be people.
Technology you rely on will be affected, but those who survive should have little difficulty repairing the damage. Soon, your children will create synthetics, and then the chaos will come back.
We can still build robots after this? Then what's stopping us from just turning them back on when it's all done? Don't you fucking back up your hard drives? It sounds like we get to kill the Reapers without much consequence. Huh. Destroy ending all the way, niggas!
Atomic penetration, rapid fire through your skull. Shot it on, we're taking it back to the days of trying to lose control. Carving in a blaze of fire, raging through my bones. Oh shit, I'm feeling it. Take on! Hell yeah, fuck yeah, I feel like killing it. Take on! Alright, that's right, what it's like to experience. Take on!
So the Reapers are dead, and all's well that ends well. Plus, if you have super high war readiness, you get an extra scene where Shepard's alive. It's brief, but I'll take it. No, the real problem is the lack of an actual epilogue, even with the DLC. It just really adds to the lack of satisfaction with this ending. I mean, you get like a slideshow at the end that explains where everything is, but they seem really desperate not to confirm Shepard's alive. It's clearly shooting for something. In specific, the ending of the first Deus Ex. I'm not kidding. It's exactly the same, right down to the color. Destroy the internet, give it to the Illuminati, or merge with it to become a god being. It's the same. But why is the ending like this? Well, according to rumor, it originally wasn't. Supposedly, the original ending of Mass Effect 3 was going to be much different. Essentially, you would discover that the Mass Effect relays and Element Zero as a whole was slowly raising the amount of dark energy in the universe. And Reapers were created to harvest advanced civilizations to prevent the complete collapse of existence as a whole. That's actually kind of awesome. Once again, it plays into that Lovecraft element to the Reapers, that these things are dealing with concepts way beyond traditional morality. Sure, it seems messed up to wipe out entire species, but they're doing it to protect reality. Now, the reason this ending wasn't used was because it was apparently leaked out, and this was back when Drew Caprichin, I'm never gonna figure out this guy's name, was still at BioWare, and I'm guessing when he left and the whole thing got spoiled, they just threw it out and tried to come up with something in time for release. And this isn't just a theory or something completely pulled out of the internet's ass. It's actually a plot point during a mission for Mass Effect 2. When you do Tally's recruitment mission, the planet you find her on is orbiting around an unstable star. The sun rays were so powerful that it actually damaged your shields if you were exposed to them for too long. There's even audio logs that outright say the star is dying way too quickly.
It's next to impossible to get accurate solar measurements. The radiation keeps burning out our equipment. This sun shouldn't be like this. It was stable a few hundred years ago. Stars don't die that quickly.
Flash forward to Tally's loyalty mission, and you can talk with Adam Baldwin about this.
What did they get from our readings?
Damnedest things, just like they said. No way the sun on Haystrom should have been acting that way.
So that dark energy theory is right. That's troubling.
Can't really comment on that, ma'am. I just shoot things.
In between his attempts to get you to buy a Make Rannoch Great Again hat, he'll actually discuss why the star was so wonky. Turns out there was a mysterious buildup of dark energy that was eating away at it, so it was rapidly aging, causing the extreme radiation output. Personally, I would have been all on board for this explanation. Maybe it's because I love cosmic level threats that could destroy existence entirely, or maybe it's because it's basically the ending of Gurren Lagann. Still, this is way better than just robots bad.
Soon, your children will create synthetics, and then the chaos will come back.
That's not my problem. It's yours.
In fact, I'm really upset they didn't go with this ending and just went with the stupid AI shit. The Reapers are supposed to be beyond all understanding. Having it literally boil down to artificial intelligence, that's like finding out Cthulhu only wants to conquer Colorado. It really doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, there's some DLC for Mass Effect 3. About 4 major mission packs. From the Ashes, Omega, Citadel, and Leviathan. From the Ashes is notable because you can recruit a Prothean. An actual Prothean. Yeah, it turns out you find one in stasis on Eden Prime. It was right next to the beacon this whole time. Mission itself is simple. You just shoot Cerberus until they go away. The DLC really kicks off when you actually recruit the Prothean. Turns out he's a soldier named Javik, and he was the only one able to go into stasis before the entire colony was destroyed 50,000 years ago. Javik is honestly kind of a pretty interesting character. He's jaded after the death of his species and is content to simply fight to the death against the Reapers. Plus, he's Jamaican.
All life provides clues for those who can read them. It is in your cells, your DNA. Experience is a biological marker.
Really, this whole DLC was an explanation behind what exactly Protheans were. You see glimpses at their culture, how their empire worked, and even references to how the council races developed during their primitive eras. It's got a good sense of humor to it.
This has been amusing. Oh? To discover the most primitive races of my time now rule the galaxy. The Asari, the humans, the Turians.
There's also the Solarians.
The lizard people evolved?
I believe they're amphibian.
They used to eat flies?
Yeah, I like this DLC. My only problem is, why is it a DLC and not just part of the main game? It feels like a serious kick to the nuts that you had to pay money to see something this substantial. I mean, it's fun, but the actual mission to recruit Javik is basic as fuck. As stated, shoot Cerberus until they go away. So, I don't know, it feels like EA got greedy, which that could be the answer for literally all the problems that every game after 1 had. Still, let's move on to the next one.
This is a war of attrition. And you're on the wrong side.
The elusive man. He's about to meet his match.
The second DLC is Omega. This one is pretty weak. I really am not a fan of this one. It comes down to help Arya from Mass Effect 2 throw Cerberus off of Omega, and the missions are literally just shooting galleries from start to finish. There's some mutant zombie things you have to fight, but we've already killed countless husks by this point. It's nothing new. I guess it's cool if you really liked the Omega section of 2, and if Arya makes your pee-pee hard, but this one, it just doesn't do anything for me. It's not that memorable. I mean, okay, the only real thing I remember from this DLC is that they showed us what a female Tyrion looks like, and getting a blowjob from that must be like sticking your dick in that razor blade box from Saw 2. But now it's time to talk about a really good DLC, Leviathan.
Our mandate is to investigate legends, rumors, old stories about the Reapers before anyone knew they existed.
You're looking for something to fight the Reapers, Commander. I'm looking for the monster that murdered my father.
Leviathan.
This is the one that really expanded upon the Reaper lore, and almost feels like an apology for how they were treated at the very end of the game. You discover their origins, and even find out the apex species that created them are very much alive. That H.P. Lovecraft vibe is jacked up to 100 with this DLC, and appropriately so. Hell, the ending involves Shepard going to the bottom of an alien ocean and speaking with the Elder Gods themselves, who brainfuck him into oblivion.
Your memories give voice to our words. Your nature will be revealed to us. Accept this. There is no war. There is only the harvest.
Then help us stop it.
None have possessed the strength in past cycles. Your own species could be destroyed with a single thought. But you are different. I have witnessed your actions in this cycle. The destruction of Sovereign, the fall of the Collectors. The Reapers perceive you as a threat. And I must understand why. Before the cycles, our kind was the apex of life in the galaxy. The lesser species were in our thrall, serving our needs. We grew more powerful and they were cared for, but we could not protect them from themselves. Over time, the species built machines that then destroyed them.
Oh god damn it.
Then the space crabs decide to join your fight against the Reapers. It's a pretty good DLC. I love the lore around the Reapers and how they were created, and the way that the Leviathan creatures are built up really does feel like a classic Lovecraft story. These things are so hilariously above the rest of the galaxy, and the final confrontation is intense. Really recommend it. Probably my favorite. Now, the final DLC for Mass Effect 3 is Citadel.
Shepard, you need a place that's yours. Somewhere to recharge, clear your head.
That's very generous.
It's practical. We need you in the best shape possible. Rested, focused.
Commander! Commander, this is urgent! There are people trying to kill you.
Yeah, I think he's aware of that.
Which is basically just 3 or 4 hours of straight fan service. You get to hang out with all your friends, hold memorials for characters that died, have a party, get laid. It's a much more laid-back experience than the rest of the game. While the whole story at large is really grim and serious, Citadel shoots for a lot more of a comedic tone. Hell, the story revolves around an evil clone Shepard trying to steal your life. Yeah, I'm not making that up, and they do address the fact that that's really ridiculous. But that's kind of where I start having problems with this DLC. I'm fine with them trying to have fun with their final outing, since this was the last piece of Mass Effect content that came out before Andromeda. I just don't think it's that funny. Some jokes land.
Tell me about the windows.
A couple of squad mates broke me out for my birthday, tried lowering me down the side of the building on a rope. It didn't work out.
It's your birthday?
No, I'm tank bred, remember? Anyway, we got some pictures on the Krogan Memorial.
In the Presidium?
Yeah, when C-Sec got there, they were mad. Or maybe they were mad about their car being on fire. Can't remember.
Others feel kinda forced.
And I don't even... Wait, what?
You were just on the Normandy. You fired me. Dishonorable discharge for conduct unbecoming. You kicked me off the ship with barely enough time to grab my toothbrush.
And then there are some that are really forced.
Targeting me? What do they want?
The intel isn't definitive yet. Last time, I guess without definitive intel, we almost landed troops on a gas giant, which is bad.
Hang on, Brooks. Take a breath. From the top, what do you know?
Excuse me, you don't have a reservation.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight's performance is brought to you by random acts of violence.
I don't know, it's just not my sense of humor. It feels too Marvel. I'm of the belief that comedy in a serious game needs to be used to break the tone. You can't have it every 5 minutes, otherwise you won't have a tone to break. And Citadel dips into that, at least to me. Still, this was a good send-off for the series. You get to have one last adventure before the disappointment begins. And all in all, Mass Effect 3 is a flawed gem. It's clear that EA was getting too involved in production, and there was so much hype riding on this release that nobody was ever going to be truly satisfied by this game. In the end, all I can say is that if you're already 2 games in, why not go ahead and cap off the trilogy? There's worse ideas, especially since if you get it on PC, you have access to mods, and there are actually a few that are pretty interesting sounding. The big one I've been keeping my eye on is one literally called Your Choices Matter, and that one is made by an absolute fucking mad lad. Essentially, the idea is they're going to try to rewrite the cutscenes in the game to allow for a lot more expression from Shepard, because Mass Effect 3 has a serious problem where Shepard auto-speaks instead of allowing you to pick an option, so it just feels a lot more controlled and linear compared to the first 2 games. Well, this mod is at least attempting to allow you to put yourself into Shepard's shoes a bit more. It can't fix every problem with the game, but I will admit, from what I've seen of the trailers, there's at least quite a bit to pay attention to. So yeah, I'll recommend this, and I really do hope it gets off the ground and ends up becoming more of a developed idea. Shockingly, people actually want Mass Effect to be an RPG. I know, it's weird, right? Anyway, after this, the Mass Effect series went quiet for a bit. Rumors were popping up now and again about a new title possibly in the works, and it would be called Andromeda, a complete reboot of the series taking place in an entirely new galaxy. That way they won't have to navigate the absolute minefield of ME3's ending. That's not a bad idea.
My father's dead. He made me his successor.
Alec is dead. Sorry, my face is tired from dealing with everything. And right now, I just want to know what happened with...
Actually, I fear you don't trust me. So I'd rather keep certain things secret.
Oh god, this was such a bad idea. Andromeda is really not great. Some people enjoy it, and the gameplay is not terrible, but pretty much everything else is just such a downgrade. The trilogy had problems, but this is just completely wrong. So let's get started. What is Andromeda and why did it fall apart? Mass Effect Andromeda came out in 2017 and serves as a standalone story removed from the larger Mass Effect trilogy. It follows the Andromeda Initiative, a project backed by various investors and the Council to send exploratory teams into the Andromeda Galaxy. The initiative is made up by the alien races and humanity. Even non-council races like the Krogan and Quarians are allowed to join the fun. The journey to the new galaxy takes over 600 years, so the vast majority of the passengers must go into stasis while being cared for by Asari doctors. And I will admit, that's actually a pretty good detail. Anyway, once they finally reach their destination, the whole plan goes to hell. All the planets they believe to be inhabitable have suddenly shifted in the opposite direction. Most of the leadership is dead, and resources are getting thin. What's left of the initiative all banded together to go to the Nexus, essentially a new citadel they built in order to give everyone sort of a base to work from. And you are Ryder. Your job is the Pathfinder, essentially the leader and representative of humanity. So you're supposed to rally everyone together and push for a brighter future together. The only problem is you have crippling autism.
Look here. And here.
Because you aren't Shepard this time, the galaxy's greatest soldier and ultimate hero, and if you played Mass Effect 3, kind of a cutie too. This time, you're a jabroni, and you joined up because your dad said so. This would be dumb, but your dad is Clancy Brown, so this changes things.
All of our long-range scans told us it was in the green zone. Perfect for human settlement. We're marooned. 20,000 souls adrift at sea. And when the power runs out, and stays out, we need to know if that's safe harbor.
I have something to say. It's better to burn out than to fade away.
Now, you actually don't start off as the Pathfinder. That's Mr. Krabs' job. Instead, you get the position after your dad dies, since he uploads an artificial intelligence into your brain. Okay, immediately, this is setting off some red flags. AI in Mass Effect are a very taboo subject. Ever since the Geth Rebellion, every species outlawed the creation of sentient machines. Having EDI in Mass Effect 2 was actually kind of a big deal, so this dude just happens to have one, and it's not taking over Ryder's body like Upgrade. What's going on here? Well, the answer is simple. Most everybody from old school BioWare was gone at this point. In fact, this game was pretty much developed by all the New Blood employees in BioWare Montreal, so it was a AAA sequel made by a B team not as renowned as the one that made the original trilogy, and all the people that made the original trilogy are no longer with the company. That's not really a good sign. Oh, what's this? Apparently they also spent way too much time and resources on this stupid procedural generation system for planets, and it was going to be like No Man's Sky? Yeah, I highly recommend the What Happened episode on Mass Effect Andromeda. It was quite a shit show trying to get this game out the door. Whole lot of ego, crunch, and suffering. Sounds like AAA gaming. Back to the game, Mass Effect Andromeda immediately sets itself apart from the trilogy, because while the writing of the original Mass Effect games were grounded and tried to be believable, Andromeda focuses more on trying to be funny.
I detect an increased level of adrenaline in your system. The neural implant is functioning properly.
Can't explore space without my coffee.
It's them or us.
Oh, it's them. Problem is, we're outnumbered. Everything's under control. Just a simple weapon malfunction. How are you?
Oh, crap.
Jesus Christ, make it stop. Andromeda is under the impression that it is way more clever than it actually is. It's the exact problem you see with modern Marvel writing, both in the movies and the comics. They're not allowed to have a serious tone. It's an SNL skit from start to finish. Every character is the comedic relief, and tense situations are smothered to death by mountains of quippy dialogue. Okay, I get it. Guardians of the Galaxy made a shitload of money, but for the love of God, can you let me be miserable for 1 fucking second? This isn't fun. I'm not having fun. And what sucks is the actual world building for Andromeda feels like wasted potential. What they add isn't terrible. I like the Angara. They genuinely feel alien, even if they just have a tribal future monk thing going on. Still, it's cool. The problem is that that's all there is. The Angara are the only new species you see. Meanwhile, the Volus, Elcor, Vorcha, Hanar, Quarians, Drell, even the fucking Batarians, they're all missing in action. So you have one kind of okay race that borders on being cool, and to get that, you had to axe 7 in their place. There's no doubt that this all revolves around that development hell that plagued this game. They just didn't have time to add all the species in, but it's an issue you can feel. All you have are humans, Asari, Solarians, Turians, Krogan, and Angara. It feels way more empty, and this is taking place in just a small chunk of the Andromeda galaxy. It's a more focused location, but it feels more desolate than the entire galaxy from the first 3 games. And it's not like the first Mass Effect was a slouch on this front too. Mass Effect 1 introduced pretty much 95% of the details that the rest of the trilogy expanded upon. The most you really get to see are the Angaran homeworld and the Nexus. And as stated, the Nexus is literally just the Made in China citadel, and the leaders keep telling me to do things. And the few planets you go to throughout the game, they're empty. They try to make cool locations, like a slum world filled with pirates or outlaws that broke off from the Initiative. There's also frost planets and various biomes you can play around in, but it's not very memorable. This is a Mass Effect game, and you fucked up your world building. That's already kind of a massive problem. Still, you need a threat to fight against and a party to do it with. So how are the characters? Do they live up to the OG crew? No. Some of the new people are alright though. Vetra's okay for Turian that's basically just Garrus again, and PB is the closest thing to an actual character with development and an arc, being distrustful of others and keeping an arm's length from everyone, but slowly learning to open up and become part of the crew. So she's not bad, simple, but there's far worse. PB's alright, even if she looks like Shrek. Or Linkara. Who else? I guess Drax isn't bad. He only has one gimmick though. He's an old Krogan. Hey Boomer, Patriarch already had that gimmick in Mass Effect 2. Find a new thing. In all seriousness, there's worse. The constant whining about how everyone's forgotten about him and that he's a reminder of the Krogan's dark times as a species is annoying, but at least you can argue that's the point. He hates himself and feels like a burden. But then there's somebody like Jal, an Angaran who joins the crew in sort of a diplomatic sense. He's basically a warrior monk and is distrustful of everyone, a lot like PB, though Jal it's way more justified because he doesn't know what you are. PB knows how your galaxy works. Jal doesn't. He's about the only stoic character of the group, which is pretty refreshing. Honestly, in any other context, you might even argue he's boring, since he's not very emotional and his humor is dry-witted. But since this is Mass Effect Andromeda, that makes him stand out as more believable than the other jokers you play around with, because the only two human companions you get are Cora and Liam. They're the worst in the game. Cora's only thing is that she's a biotic who trained with Asari. It's like hanging out with that one chick who went to Mexico during college. Oh, they have such a wonderful culture. All the food was amazing. I trained with Athari commandos. Yeah, well, I killed them in the first game. They ain't shit. Biotics are gay. Guns are better. But the absolute worst companion in the game, by far, is Liam. Liam is so obnoxious, unfunny, and annoying that you have to fight with him just to make his dialogue sound good. Because when Liam is happy, I'm not. Liam's only real character is that he's a funny black guy with an English accent. Some scenes he's clever. Others he's a brain-dead retard. The dude doesn't take any of this seriously, which wouldn't be a problem if tons of people weren't dying around us. Here's some examples of his top-tier jokes.
You don't even know if this is the way.
Well, something has to go right. You take a risk for the right reason. It's supposed to work.
I think I really pissed that one off. Maybe because I shot him in the face.
Liam, you said to expect pirates. This is a catch ship. A big one.
Change of plan?
Whoever wrote Liam's dialogue, I sincerely hope you became a janitor after this game, but now let's talk about Ryder. Much in the same vein as Shepard, Ryder is more of a pre-written character who you can lightly customize, but there's even less role-playing than the trilogy beyond combat builds, which was already pretty thin. The background system is completely worthless. You get maybe a line of dialogue or two at best, no quests or anything special like Mass Effect 1. You know what? That's fine. I can live with that. Ryder is an Alliance veteran moving to Andromeda with his sister and his dad. I'm even okay with Paragon Renegade being removed. That's fine. I already explained that it felt too black and white at points, so just removing it and focusing on a personality system has potential to be a really cool idea. Instead of the Paragon Renegade system from the original games, Andromeda's dialogue is focused on a set of archetypes and emotional states. You have professional, logical, casual, and emotional. So you think you might have a writer that's a lot more cold and detached, focused on logical outcomes and results, or a writer that's more laid back and acts more like an everyman trapped in a crazy situation if you play casual. On paper, this should be the answer to that lack of nuance I brought up before, but the truth is that's not how it works. Every response sounds exactly the same. There's no way to play a different kind of writer. You're playing Ryder, with maybe a few extra steps tied to it. There's no big story impacting choices. It's surface level at best, or just outright non-existent. Loyalty missions are gutted and you can't even screw them up. You get their loyalty even if you intentionally try to fuck them over. You can brutally murder PB's ex-girlfriend in front of her, and she'll think that you just earned her loyalty for life, which... okay, that might actually be accurate to how women work. Disregard this point. So, your crew is weak as fuck, but what about the villains? It's the Borg. They are literally just the Borg, an evil, hyper-advanced alien species that assimilates everyone they come in contact with, and they've been at war with the Angara for a while. So we've gone from eldritch machine gods with unknowable motives and mind-shattering abilities to just the fucking Borg. There isn't even any implication that they're puppets of a higher being, like Saren and the Geth, or the Collectors from 2. It's just that the Ket are evil. They want to assimilate. There's nothing to discover with them. Once you see them, you know everything. And the game makes a massive deal of the Forerunner race known as the Remnant. But the most you find out about them is that they could terraform planets really fast. It's not any better than if the big dramatic reveal of Mass Effect 1 was finding out the Protheans used Mass Effect tech. No shit, Sherlock. So once again, it's a dud. Now there's an aspect of Mass Effect I've held off on discussing throughout this video, even though it's probably one of the most noteworthy features to a lot of fans. Character romances. Being able to enter into an intimate relationship with a team member, and seeing the effect that has on the story. Well, once again, Andromeda doesn't live up to the trilogy. Since the cast all around just do not meet the mark of being enjoyable characters, at least to me personally, there's no desire to see Ryder form romantic attachments to them. Add that with the clunky dialogue and some of the flirting scenes are just pure agony to listen to.
No, I mean, I think you're cute and I like seeing you up here. Oh my goodness, writer. Also, the accent. The accent is, I mean, it's not the only thing, but, okay, I should just go over there to the piloting thing.
Kill me now.
Really, the only thing you can say about Andromeda romances is that the sex scenes are more explicit. Like, here's the Tally romance scene from Mass Effect 2. It's played off with restraint, and the most you see is her straddling Shepard. Now let's look at Miranda's scene. Yeah, the most you see is her bra before it fades to black. Now, let's look at a scene from Andromeda. We'll go with Joel's sex scene.
Maybe it is.
Wait, this is the male writer.
Take a look.
Oh my god.
Wherever you go, take me with you.
Unacceptable!
And this reaction is sort of universal, considering how wonky the graphics are. But the worst part of Mass Effect Andromeda is that there is really a good game buried underneath all of this bullshit, all the fetch quests, scanning plants, and obnoxious dialogue. If you'll humor me for a bit, let me explain how Andromeda could have been way better, at least in this hypothetical situation. This is assuming development went smoothly and didn't turn into an agonizing nightmare. All the mechanics are given the attention they need, and the game is the entire artistic vision. So first thing we're gonna do is ditch the Ket and the Remnant. They don't serve much of a purpose beyond annoyances, and they're pretty tired concepts as it is. And since there isn't a central villain in Andromeda, let me go a bit further. Completely rewrite these characters and really just fix the fucking loyalty missions. I mean, they're the main way you really gain character knowledge, and you're allowed to really interact with them and see who they are as people. Like, Drax is such a wasted opportunity. He's a Krogan that's super old, yes, but there's more to him than just that. You can explore more. And the idea that he hates himself for being a reminder of the Krogan bad years, to me is kind of stupid. Krogan culture is extremely proud of who they are, even as warriors. So instead, why not have it be Drax is starting to get so old that he's not the guy he used to be. He used to be the ferocious warrior, the one that scared the shit out of all of the Krogan. But now, he's way slower than he ever was, and he feels like he's about to fall apart, and his arc could have been about how he learns that maybe his role is less of a fighter and more of an advisor to his people. It becomes sort of like what Patriarch was in Mass Effect 2, once again kind of stealing ideas from that. I mean, it at least would have cemented the theme that Andromeda is not about fighting, it's about exploration and coming together. So Drax learns to drop his violent ways and become a better leader to his people. Right there, that's compelling. Let's keep going with this, because right now we're on a roll. Let's really start digging into how Andromeda could have been better. Way back in the beginning of the video, I said Star Trek was a pretty big inspiration for Mass Effect. So if we're going to change up the formula and try something new, they should double down on that for Andromeda. The emphasis of the game is to explore a new galaxy and meet new species to build relationships with. That's literally the entire point of Star Trek. So Andromeda should be about you trying to balance the needs of the Andromeda Initiative with the demands and customs of the natives. The idea that the Initiative being in a desperate state when you show up is a great idea. It's the driving force for you to take charge and try to fix everything. But instead of getting dragged into terraforming plots and the war with the Ket, I'd argue that the beginning should just be about you getting your first colony set up. You're trying to build on a new planet and you have no idea how any of this shit works. The missions revolve around clearing out the space. Conflict can come from various species fighting over who gets the plot of land. Everyone's desperate to get off the colony ships and the Nexus. They're running out of food and barely working. This can be the first act where you're working to get everything up off the ground. Once you finally have your successful colony, that's when you start meeting Andromeda aliens. Because as it turns out, you colonized a planet that belongs to an Angaran mining corporation. So now you have to deal with sensitive political issues while you barely have any clue how any of this shit works. That would be the focus of this new Andromeda, figuring out how this new galaxy's culture functions. It would be similar to the Angle system from the Pathologic games. You have to decipher how to communicate with the new aliens in Andromeda, what their traditions are, and figure out the optimal path to winning them over to your side. In fact, we're gonna go ahead and steal another mechanic from a game real quick. Assassin's Creed Odyssey has a system where you can fight as a mercenary for either Athens or Sparta. If you win territory for either side, they'll take more and more of the map. It's really just for show, and is pretty fucking useless. So let's incorporate this into Andromeda, but we'll modify it to work here. The system will go like this. Every faction in the game will have a relationship with the Initiative. If you do favors for them and remain loyal, they will join you and support your colonies. If you overlook or actively damage them, they'll eventually become outright hostile and you'll go to war. That system where you have to dedicate colonies to either a science or military focus will actually matter here. Science colonies are outwardly less hostile looking, so your relationships with other factions will be less strained, but they're more vulnerable to invasion. Military-focused colonies make other factions way more wary of you, yet they're secure. Basically, Andromeda will be a 4X game that's mixed with an RPG. Remember, Star Trek focused a lot more on politics and negotiations instead of violent action. There will still be action, there's still plenty of excuses to get into shootouts like having bandits or pirates show up, but having to go to war with a faction should be a worst case scenario. The goal is to win them over to your side to help the initiative, not genocide, though that would be an option. Another mechanic I would steal is the personality system from Alpha Protocol. For those that never played Alpha Protocol, the dialogue system worked off the basis of having 3 separate archetypes for spies. They called it the 3 J's: James Bond, Jason Bourne, and Jack Bauer. James Bond is the suave spy that flirts with women, essentially a laid-back playthrough. Jason Bourne is the cold and professional type. You get to the point and don't waste much time. Jack Bauer is aggressive and emotional, and most times this results in violence. Andromeda can easily use this system as well, just modify it. It'll be called the 3 Captains. We're sticking with the Star Trek theme here, so the captains will be Kirk, Picard, and Sisko. But this is going to be a lot more than just picking dialogue options in a conversation. These would be solutions to a problem instead of just a line to say. This would encourage people to experiment and see how these results bounce off of each other. Kirk would be passionate and a suave leader. A lot of this route would revolve around appealing to morality and principles, essentially a charisma route. Picard is the analytical, borderline intellectual option. This is the path that makes you think, and is more of the traditional diplomat. This would revolve around gathering information and evidence and using it appropriately, so sort of a Boy Scout route. Now the last one, Sisko, is essentially the aggressive option, but there's a twist. Instead of just pulling out your gun and shooting somebody, this personality would focus more on threats and underhanded tactics. So you might have to blackmail somebody to get what you want, or maybe you listen to Garrick one too many times and all of a sudden you're committing political assassinations. If it's not clear, I really like Deep Space Nine. Watch it. All 7 seasons are on Amazon. It's really good.
I was on the high road to the top of the Ferengi business world. And then it all fell apart. How? Rule of acquisition 112. Never have sex with the boss's sister.
Still, this is all just a brief idea. Now, the last thing I would also steal from Pathologic would be the quest system. At least in the sense that Pathologic has an emphasis on trying to figure out the town's culture, including when someone is lying to you or whether or not a fairy tale has legitimate truth to it. It's extremely possible to take a quest, use up time and resources finishing it, only to find out it wasn't worth it. It was just a kid telling you a story. This would actually work great in Andromeda. Remember, you're a foreigner to this newest society. You don't know how this place works, so there can be quests where the only way to win is to not get involved whatsoever. Every option damages your reputation and pushes you closer to war with somebody. This can also be where the captain system comes in. You might be trying to play the entire game out as like Kirk, only to encounter a situation where you might need to pull a Sisko move in order to get an optimal outcome, or the opposite spectrum. You're going full Sisko, but find a quest where you kinda need to be Picard to prevent full-blown war. I just think a system working like this would be amazing in a Mass Effect game. Maybe it's just me. And really, at this point, it's just all a fantasy. The real Andromeda is nothing like this, and I'm pretty much just yelling at it for not being the game I wanted to be, which is kinda petty, admittedly. Still, thanks to Andromeda, Mass Effect is dead for now. Wrong. Turns out Mass Effect 5 is confirmed. In fact, I had to drastically rework the ending of this video here, because holy shit did things go sideways. The Legacy Collection for the trilogy is coming out, but it's only gonna be an HD remaster of the games, no fixing 1's combat or rewriting 3's ending, at least from what I'm hearing. In fact, according to rumor, Mass Effect 5 is gonna stay in the Andromeda Galaxy, so it's safe to say we're never going to come back to the Milky Way. Am I excited for it? No, not really. Honestly, I'm keeping my eye on what Archetype Entertainment is cooking up. BioWare veterans meeting together at a new studio, and they're developing a new science fiction RPG. Something tells me this is going to be a bitch smack to EA and new BioWare. Might be worth paying attention to. Hopefully it'll actually come out. Originally, I was going to say thank you for helping this channel reach 3,000 subscribers, but yeah, things changed. In fact, I can't even be precise on what number we're at now since it's been jumping up every day so far. I honestly can't thank everybody enough. It's mind-blowing to think that there's a wide audience that's enjoying these videos so far. Really hope this one was well worth the wait. And for all the newcomers here that might have just stumbled in and don't really know what's going on, I understand that you're probably confused. Don't worry, I feel the exact same way. I lost track of what is even going on anymore. Because of that, and since everything went up in smoke, there's only one real way to end this video that'll get the message across to anybody joining us.
strange time in my life.
Thank you to my Subscribe Star donators, Lucas Stolas Enjoyer, AMD Blue, Crumb, The False Knight, Taki Walid, Bost, Mr. Cool Gamer, and Moonat. Your support is well appreciated, friends. Also a thank you to Sweenerbutts, who provided his voice for this video. Even if it's just a tiny little part, it was nice of him to take the time out to do that. Yeah, really cool guy. Unfortunately, the channel he had started catching the attention of the YouTube bots, and not in a good way, so he decided to have one last finale before cutting it off entirely. I'll highly recommend you go check it out. Really funny dude. And yeah, it's sad to see how YouTube killed a guy that was actually pretty invested in building his channel up. It was pretty sad. Anyway, see you guys.